very warm good afternoon to everyone watching. I welcome you to the live teleconference conducted by the Department of English at Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University. Students, please note that today's teleconference is catered to the students of MA second year. Before we start, I would like to inform you that you are free to contact us at the given number so as to discuss your queries with us. 040-2368-0456. Students, please let me introduce you to our esteemed guests of today. Professor Rani Rajitha Madhuri, Dean, Faculty of Arts at Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We are also joined by Ms. Bhuvaneswari, Assistant Professor, Veera Nari, Chakali, Ilamma Women's University. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Professor Madhuri, can you please give us an introduction of what today's teleconference would be about?
Good afternoon, dear students. A very warm welcome to the teleconference today. On behalf of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University, Department of English, we welcome you all for this teleconference, which is related to MA second year course, and the sixth, specifically the subject is Indian writing in English. So today we are trying to understand why Indian writers are important in literature and coming to English literature. Three writers we are discussing today. The first is Mahaswetha Devi, the second is Anitha Desai, and the third is Volga. All the three writers represent different identities because Mahaswetha Devi comes from a background of revolutionary writer, and she is a Gnanpith awardee as well. The second is Anitha Desai. She herself represented lot of information specifically coming from literature side. Her daughter is also famous writer, and she won Sahitya Academy Award as well. Coming to Volga, she is a Telugu writer who tried to understand the feministic lenses and gave lot of historical perspectives, and retellings have been done. How we can see all these writers represented their lived experiences in our course. So this is related to the Indian writing in English, and we are trying to understand all the three writers from different periods and the questioning of, or the literature representing the question of women, the body, personal and political. Thank you, Shravya, for giving a wonderful introduction about both of us. I trust for 1 hour we are going to be together when it comes to the session of teleconference, where I request all the students to have a glance of your book of the sixth course in MA English Literature, Indian Writing in English. If you have the book with you, kindly open that. Unit 13, Unit 14 and Unit 15. All the three units are discussed in the third block. Thank you. Thank you, Shravya.
Professor Madhuri, can you please throw light on Mahaswetha Devi and what are the different themes that are generally observed in her works?
Yeah, thank you, Shravya. Mahaswetha Devi is a Bengali writer, and she is a renowned Indian writer and social activist as well. Focused on tribal, marginalized and oppressed communities, her works critique state power and social injustice. Her writings represent the forest, the women in the forest, the atrocities that have happened there, and it is a layered history. The history is repeated there in different parts of her work, whether it can be Rudali or lot of translations have come, and today we are discussing on Hazar Chaurasi Ki Maa, mother of 1084, is one of the most renounced novel. Why this novel is important for us? Because it is documenting the history of that particular period, because after the post-independent era, it is not before the independence, but after the independence. So this post-independent era gives a glimpse of how the democracy is rewritten from a literature perspective and what kind of unrest was there. So there is a tension between the state, the democracy and proactive nature of one part of Bengal revolution or revolutionary activities used to happen in Bengal in the name of Naxalism. So, is a blend of personal narrative and history in her work. Mahaswetha Devi, this is the 100th year of Mahaswetha Devi, where birth anniversary we are celebrating, remembering the pain, agony and suffering of the tribal people, where or the oppressed communities, where we can see there is a new voice and new hope in the works of Mahaswetha Devi. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Bhuvaneswari, can you please comment on the significance of Mother of 1084?
Yes. Good afternoon, students. When it comes to the title Mother of 1084, it is not as it is been written or it is been representing. There is a symbolic meaning behind the title. When we look at the word mother, the moment we read it, it comes a picture, it gives us a picture of a lady who cares, who nurtures a child. Similarly, even in this novel, we find the main character Sujata Chatterjee, who extends her love towards her son. And she is the one who voices out Brati's ambitions. 1084 is not just a mere number. It is the number that is being given or assigned to the corpse of Brati, who is the character in this chapter, Mother of 1084. So, Brati was encountered in this Naxal movement. He took part in this Naxal movement, and when he was being encountered, he lost his life, and from that point of time, Sujata Chatterjee took up she started working towards the ambitions of Brati. And here 1084 is not just representing the individual, the single character that is Brati, but it might be referring to many 1084s, the people who lost their lives in such political protest, in such Naxal movements. So it is a universal title, as we can say. So yes, Shravya, this was the reference to the title.
Thank you.
Yeah. When it comes to Mahaswetha Devi, she is a Sahitya Academy Award winner and also Gnanpith Awardee and Raman Magsaysay Award. When we speak about the awards, it's not only it is not something which is representing the scholarship of that particular writer, but it is representing the lives of the people. So when it comes to Mother of 1084 ki Ma, the number, what is the significance of number? When it comes to symbolism, you can very clearly see the corpse of a son. The name of that particular person is not mentioned there. Symbolically, only the number of that particular corpse has been mentioned. As rightly pointed out by Dr. Bhuvana, it says very clearly that it is only representation of the word 1084. Mother of 1084. They are calling the mother there. Whenever they are calling 1084 ki Ma, that means it is not a body which is alive, but a corpse which is there, and she is representing as a mother to that particular corpse. So we can very clearly see how powerfully the narrative style of Mahaswetha Devi is clearly represented when they are calling the body of Brati, the son of Sujata, who is the mother there, where whenever they call 1084 ki Ma. So there is no name there. It is the mother, which is the representation of the motherhood, and 1084, which is falling apart the value system after the post-independence. So how powerful the narrative style, how they are representing the particular state of mind and the lived experiences of Mahaswetha Devi, we can clearly see in 1084. And Mahaswetha is shortlisted for the Man Booker International Prize in 2009 as well, for two reasons. Whenever she is writing, whether it can be a short story like Rudali or collection of short stories, she is representing the nature, representing the state and the undemocratic revolutionary ideology which was represented of that particular period in 1960s to 1980s and odd.
Thank you, ma'am, for your wise inputs. On that note, Ms. Bhuvaneswari, can you please inform us how story is turned into history through Mother of 1084?
Yes, Shravya. When we look at the story itself, we need to discuss the background of the story. This Mother of 1084 play is being set in Bengal, which is during the periods of 1960s and 70s, wherein the Naxal movement took place. Initially, it was not being referred to as a Naxal movement, but it was a peasant revolt. The farmers were fighting for their rights. So, and it was the same time where unemployment was prevailing in Bengal. So, most of the youth who were not working or who were not into education also, they took part in this Naxal movement. They were supporting the farmers to fight for their rights. So, and one such character is our Brati from Mother of 1084. He was also the person who took part in this Naxal movement, and he lost his life. So, but despite being the main character in this novel, we do not get to see Brati talking about his ambitions. We find Brati's ideas being portrayed or his ambitions being known through the people whom he was connected with. So, we get to know about Brati through the eyes of the others. Now he is a deceased person. He lost his life. So, he is no more there. Now he has been just reduced to a memory in the people's mind. So this is the style of Mahaswetha Devi's writing, wherein she introduces history through memory. And also we are being introduced to the Naxal movement, which is the history of this novel. In the same manner as we got to know about Brati through the memory of others, we also learn about the Naxal movement through the memory of others. Like when Sujata Chatterjee, after she she learns about the death of her son, she starts to investigate about the reason for Brati getting into that Naxal movement. In the same process, she realizes that the story is not only about her son, it is now turning into her story. So it is the way we find history being portrayed through memory. This is the style of Mahaswetha Devi, and the author says that every writer should have a sense of history so that the audience or the readers will be able to understand the setting in which they are living in, to understand the times that in which they are living in. This is how we learn how the story turns from memory to history.
Yeah. As rightly pointed out by Dr. Bhuna, the characters of Sujata, Brati and Dibyanath and Nandini, these are very strong characters in this novel. The mother is represented not only from one perspective, she is trying to understand the son after the death of her son. When she goes and takes the corpse of the son, the husband is worried, the father is worried that what the society will think, because he is encountered in the process of by the police. So the father is representing the bourgeois system, and mother is trying to understand the son in a different perspective. So she goes in search, as rightly pointed out by Dr. Bona, when she was trying to tell that why my son has become like that, what kind of ideology is drawn to from which part of revolution that he is trying to get. She is going to understand his son, her son, in a different perspective, right? And in course of wanted to understand his son's ideology, she goes to his friends and his other comrades who are associated with his son, with her son. So in course of time she comes to know that Nandini is very close to Brati as well as other comrades. Now we can see there is a change in the ideology of the mother. Understanding the son as a son, she was able to see very loving and fun loving child, but now the Brati is no more the same child. Now Brati is questioning the state, and Brati is questioning the atrocities happening around him in the society, and he is questioning the very state. So this is some question, this is a place where mother thinks that I failed to understand my son. The sister, the brother of Brati, no one want to own the grief of losing a brother, but they are worried what the society will think, because his brother and her brother is encounter. Father is unable to show his emotions because again the society conditioning is given to him, where it is the whole family is worried about what will be the reputation of the family because one of the son got encountered. So you can see the clash of the society, which is represented very clearly in the novel. Like in a nutshell, we can say what is happening in the society is represented by the family of Brata, right? So these are some characters which are very important, and I am just adding up to what Bhuvana said to us. It is about the themes of what kind of themes are dwelt in this particular novel. Motherhood and grief as a political awakening. See, generally what mothers are represented with lot of love, care, conditions, right? It's a stereotypical conditioning of motherhood. But here it is the same motherhood with lot of grief and as a political awakening. Why this is happening to our family? The first comes personal, then it becomes political. So it is a political awakening where mother is going in search of her son Brati. What kind of ideology? Why an innocent, fun-loving son became a very serious person in his life, but not unknowingly, no family member is interested to know more about it. So this is one of the strong themes that we can see in Hazar Chaurasi Kima, which was translated as Mother of 10. Class conflict and bourgeois complacency. What is this? How the class is represented? In the post-Indian scenario, class, caste and gender. So these are three important questions that were there on those days. So how the class conflict, what kind of interest are there in the class, and how the caste is represented, and at the same time gender also. When Nandita and Sujata are having a dialogue with each other, we can clearly see the national discourse there, what kind of anxieties they carried on those days, and what is the surrounding areas that influenced the youngsters of those years. So history plays a very important role, and documenting the history in a fictional way. It is not the documentation as a history, but it is represented in her characters like Sujata, who stands for the value, Brati, who stands for the value, whereas the father is representing the changes in the society and the stereotypical thinking of the conditioning of the society. And brother and sister, they also represent that, like any other family, they are more worried about the word encounter by the police rather than the grief of losing their own brother and the son. And coming to the state violence and ideological struggle. See, whenever there is a tension and anxiety between the state violence and the ideological struggle, how the ideology influences the young people and the thinking minds, how intellectually you are going to think, that much of oppression will be there, not only presented in 1960s, even 2026 is also witnessing that kind of difference between the ideological struggle and the state violence. I am just taking one anecdote, very contemporary anecdote, like now today in the month of April 2026, we are witnessing the war around us. So in solidarity with all the war victims, we can see very clearly it is not only happening around the world, it is happening in every state and in every state of every country and different parts of the world in one form or the other. So there is always a tension and anxiety between the ideology and the state violence. This is one more important theme, because whenever Mahaswetha Devi is writing, she is documenting the history in different perspectives and different layers. That's what we can see, whether it can be in Rudali or, that is a translation, Why Women Cry. See, crying is something which is represented as a grief, but here the cry is a profession there. The same thing, ideology should always be represented with great respect, but why it encounters the violence, and that too the state violence. So the writer is questioning the basic human responsibility and identity here in her novels. Alienation within family structures. So this is alienation. That means you find that rootlessness. The Bharati's father is very rich, an industrialist, brother and sister also very well known in the society, and mother Sujata, Bharati's mother Sujata, she is also, they are all coming from the class. We can see there how the bourgeois play a strong role, how the educated people are suppressing the people who are margins, how subordinal literature we can see very clearly. At that time it was not represented with that name, but the rootlessness and alienation within the family. Bharati was unable to understand or is questioning again and again the father, brother, sister, in larger terms the state and the society. So that was not tolerated by the state, and in course of time he becomes a victim of it and the encounter has been done. As presented by Bhuvana, Dr. Bhuvana, when she said memory and resistance, how the memory comes to again and again plays a very important role in giving the resistance to that particular idea of the idea of nationalism and the relating to that particular ideology. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. I think that very neatly summed up the concept of Mother of 1084 by Mahaswetha Devi. Students, I would like to remind you once again that you are free to contact us on the following number 040-2368-0456. We shall now proceed to the next unit. Professor Madhuri, can you please introduce us to the writer of this text, Anitha Desai?
Yeah, today we are discussing three writers, Indian writers. The first we started with Mahaswetha Devi, because immediately we can see she belongs to pre-independent period and post-independent period is clearly written and documented in her literary works. When it comes to Anitha Desai, again she travelled a lot. The first one is political awakening. The second one is it is redefining the domestic spaces. How the domestic space is questioning the identity of a woman, that we can see in Anitha Desai. Anitha Desai is a prominent Indian English novelist who is known for showcasing the inner world of her characters, and her characters are very active and lot of introspection and search for an identity is main theme in Anitha Desai. She portrays a psychological depth in literature, explores the theme of alienation and identity again, how women are identified within the spaces of the kitchen or the specific spaces which are given to women. They don't have their own identity. That is one question she again and again represents, whether it can be in where shall we go this summer. This is a major novel that depicts the question of identity. That is what we can see in Anitha Desai. And one interesting, we all know, like she is the mother of Kiran Desai, a very famous diaspora writer, and her interpretation of maladies is won Booker's Prize as well. Anitha Desai herself won Sahitya Academy Award in 1978 for her work on Fire on the Mountain, and it is a beautiful work of Anitha Desai, where it is also shortlisted for the Booker Prize, and she got Sahitya Academy Fellowship in 2007. This is a brief biography of Anitha. There is always a parallel line between all the three writers which we are discussing today: Mahaswetha Devi, Anitha Desai and Olga. Olga is a pen name of Lalita, who is a women writer in Telugu and a pioneering writer and legendary writer who is documenting from last 50 years what is happening in the regional language. We call it as vernacular language. So how the subalterns are speaking, whether it can be tribal literature, women literature, children literature, the voice is given to the voiceless. So all these women writers, all these three Indian women writers who wrote in Mahaswetha Devi in Bengal, it is again translated. When it comes to Anitha Desai, it is directly in English, and when it comes to Olga, it is in Telugu, and she also was translated in different languages as such. So we are discussing today starting with Mahaswetha Devi. Now we are going through with Anitha Desai, where the work we are discussing today is Where Shall We Go This Summer.
Thank you, ma'am. The most interesting line which I picked up from your speech was that Anitha Desai focuses on the inner turmoil of her characters. On this note, Dr. Bhuvaneswari, can you please comment on how self-discovery is achieved through the protagonist of the text Where Shall We Go This Summer?
Yes, Shravya. When we look at this work, it is divided into three parts. The first one is Monsoon 67. The second part is Winter 47, which means 1947, which also represents the year of independence of India. And the third part is again Monsoon 67. So when the novel begins in the first part, that is Monsoon 67, we find Sita, the main character, along with her 4 children, and she is bearing her 5th child, and her modern husband Raman. They are all staying in the Bombay. Their lifestyle is there. So they are set in Bombay. But they are well settled, they have everything financially and emotionally available, but despite of it, Sita is not happy. She is not ready to accept the society, the pressures that has been put on her because of the modern world. She often complains that her husband is not emotionally available for her, or the children are too busy with their works. So she longs for freedom, she longs for peace. And we also see one situation. I give you an example from the story wherein you find Sita looking outside the window, and she finds there are crows who are attacking an eagle, and they kill it. So this makes her feel that the pressures of urban society are also pulling away the peace inside her. She feels that now it is time to move out from this chaotic world, and she also decides not to give birth to her 5th child in this pressured society. So she longs for moving into an island where she spent her childhood. The name of the island is Manori. So there she decides to go along with her children and all, but her husband asks her to think about it. He says there is no need for us to move into that space. But in the second part of the novel, that is Winter 47, we find Sita exploring peace, exploring freedom, and she moves to that island where they spent their childhood. Here we see Sita realizing that this island is no more magical. Initially, when she spent her childhood there, she learns that this island possessed many magical powers wherein people used to come to ease their pains or their ailments. Sita's father also was part of the freedom struggle, and he wanted, after his retirement, he used to treat the ailments of the people. So she also believed that now even her father is no more. She thought that maybe the presence of the island would give her peace, and she wanted to drop her child there in that island, because in the city she was forced to think from the perspective of the child also. She felt that she is committing a crime aborting her child because of the urban pressures. Even Raman was supporting to abort the child, but she wanted to move to the island, there get the peace and clarity and think about herself. So now after getting to the island, she realizes that it is no more magical and it is all illusionary, and this makes her rethink about her decision. She also finds that her children are not enjoying the lifestyle in that island. See, it also happens generally with us. Suddenly for vacation or so, we move to some place for peace, but we can't stay there for longer because our habit, we are habituated to the modern world, to the urban living style. So now Sita rethinks. She decides to move to her Bombay. So there we come to the third part of the novel, where we find Raman coming and taking Sita along with her 4 children back to Bombay.
So now Sita has become more aware of her identity. Moving from island doesn't mean that she's moving as if a defeated woman. She's now more aware. She understood that life is not the same. She accepted the life. So that is how we see the identity of Sita in Where Shall We Go This Summer.
Yeah, continuing what Dr. Bhuvana said, there is a tension between modern and identity.
I think we are getting a call, we'll take it.
Good afternoon. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Sairam. I'm calling from Khammam. My doubt is can you just explain what is beauty is truth and truth is beauty in Volga's literature? And also, I want to ask you one last question. That is woman make half of the sky. So, can you just tell me Mao statements? Thank you very much.
What's your name? What's your name?
My name is Sairam, madam. I'm
Yeah.
from Khammam, madam. So that's the reason I just called. Thank you.
Thank you, Sairam. It's good question. As you said, we are still yet to go with Volga, and as you pointed out, Volga's poetry or the settings of poetry and the question of femininity, he has some questions. Mr. Sai will be addressing your question once we start talking about the writer Volga. Thank you so much. Yeah. Coming back to our, it's a very good question the Mr. Sai from Khammam has given a, I think it's something which is setting a tone for us for today's afternoon session. So where shall we go this summer? But now we are talking about Anitha Desai work, Where Shall We Go This Summer? It is set in the urban area and it's a middle class Indian society which is representing the modernity, and there is a tension between tradition and modernity as pointed out by Dr. Bhuvana, which reflects gender expectation. So the politics of body politics we call it, and it's her 5th pregnancy which she don't want to carry. So she is imagining that some magic or some supernatural thing may happen and she can hold that. So there is some kind of escapist ideology that we can see, and there is an emotional isolation in these domestic spaces. That's what we can see with Sita. It is something, a shifting of value system after the post independence is very clear in the character of Sita and Raman. Sita represents like a troubled protagonist, whereas Raman is portrayed like a practical and rational husband. So there is always a balance that we can see in Anitha Desai, where the trouble is not the trouble as we see, but the trouble of understanding the women body, her emotions and ideology, and how she is going to identify or accept the reality in such a way that it is an open-ended novel for us. Whereas children represent familial responsibilities, all the 4 children, as I agree with Dr. Bhuvana when she said they are very excited to go where we are going for the summer, but they go there for some time, they are very happy, but they want to come back. The longing nature of coming back, that is clearly we can see in the children, and also accepting the reality with the Raman, Sita also comes back. What is the role of Moses here? It is something which is symbolic figure of Sita's past. Past cannot be changed, whereas adapting the present is what we can see in Anitha Desai. How we cannot change the past is in the form of very imaginary in the sense holding a 5th pregnancy or aborting the 5th pregnancy is not possible to her at that point of time, which is accepting the reality becomes the norm to her as well. Whereas island inhabitants, they are reflective alternative existence. These are very important characters. Sita, protagonist, then Raman, the wife of Sita, children, Moses and island inhabitants. Then comes to what is the theme? Am I right, Shravya? Like we'll go for the themes of this. Alienation and existential. Again we can see there is a parallel between Mahaswetha Devi's Brati and how Sujata is coming with reflections. Here we are trying to see Sita's alienation. It is a domestic space, but still the 4 children are there. A wonderful husband Raman is there who is modern in the terms of society. Still she is not finding her space there. So about her own voice that she has to understand, this we can see the alienation is redefined not from a societal perspective but at the personal level. Coming to existential crisis. So what is this crisis that she is facing? It is not about the class, but it is here in this novel about the gender. So the transformation is there. It is not from the alienation from the society, but from her own domestic space, and how the escape becomes a route for them. Escape versus accepting of reality. How you are going to accept the reality keeping the terms and conditions of post-independent period. Then comes the third point, which is very important. I think Bhuvana will throw more light on that. Female subjectivity and emotional conflict. Am I right, Bhuvana? When it comes to the second, how she is wanted to keep her pregnancy don't want to deliver the baby. So this is something which is an emotional conflict. Yes. I think you want to give some more information about it. Please go ahead.
Yes. So as ma'am rightly pointed out, the other theme when we explore this novel is that a female subjectivity and emotional conflict. Here the entire novel focuses on Sita's identity, her struggle to identify herself, her struggle to connect to herself and the urban setting. But she is not able to adapt, but yet she is not submissive. She has took a decision for herself. She decided about dropping the child. Of course it is not, she decided that it should not be done in Bombay. She decided to move to Manori Island, and later we come to the decision of Sita realizing that yes, this is, she was trying to escape from the reality. Manori Island became an escape for her, and now she realizes that this space is no more magical. She tries to seek peace and escape from there, but her husband Raman introduces her to the reality, introduces her to that we can't run away from the reality, and fantasy is not something which can give us peace for a long period of time. So she returns along with Raman to the Bombay.
So adding up to what Dr. Bona said, Sita's disillusioned with her urban life. She is fed up with her urban life because post-independent after 60s and 70s, there is lot of change in the society. Technology is intruding. People are in touch with the print and media, print and audio, electronic media, that they are influenced by a lot of technology rather than the human touch. This is what we can see in her disillusion with her urban life, feeling alienated and distressed in many ways. That's the reason she wanted to take a route of escape. She retreats to Manori Island seeking peace and escape, but in the long run, she cannot deny the reality. That's one point which we again and again in different the three parts that we can see how she wanted to run away. And however, reality intrudes and her illusion begin to fade, because when you are encountering with the reality, it hurts, but acceptance is a mode where with the help of Raman, she wants to come back to the normal society. In spite of all said and done, there is one question which comes to her about the body politics. Who owns the body? Is the women body is having an identity or owning a womb? These are the some questions which we see in the Simone de Beauvoir's very famous work, The Second Sex, right? So Simone de Beauvoir's argument, or Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own. This is a question of having a room and a lock where they can sit and write, or they can have their own space. These are some fundamental feminist writers who questioned the very ideology and notion of marriage. So, the notion of marriage is questioned here. The ideology of self identity is again and again coming into the dialogue, where the women bodies belong, whom the women body belong. Taking some example from the very contemporary society, subject and object, how women bodies are considered as an object, rather than, you know, it's not about women, but also how the objectification of the women's body is again and again comes into the scenario. Excuse me. The novel ends with reluctant acceptance of reality. It is not that they are accepting willingly, she is not accepting willingly, but it is not, there is no choice for her other than accepting the reality and coming back to the society with the help of her husband Raman.
Thank you, ma'am, for the concise explanation. We will now be moving on to the next text of today, Ioni by Volga. Professor Madhuri, can you please comment on why or how Volga is considered as a feminist writer?
Yeah, it's very interesting that there is a thread between Mahaswetha Devi, Anitha Desai and Volga. These writers represent different parts of India. Mahaswetha Devi is writing from Bengal. Anitha Desai is writing from another part of India where the class is represented very clearly and domestic spaces are given importance, because women life is more associated not with the outer world or the other, but it is about the inner world and the domestic spaces. Coming to Volga, ideologically she is a very strong feminist voice in South India, and in Telugu, the language, she writes, and from last 40 more years she is continuously writing with a space and voice for the women, and she is rewriting myths as well, which is one important sisterhood is celebrated. As we can see in black writers or Afro-American writers like Toni Morrison, where she speaks on Beloved, or we can see take some novels of Alice Walker, or the writers who are very particular about celebrating sisterhood. Interestingly, today's the work of Volga is Ioni. So it is something which is challenging the patriarchy and patriarchal narratives, because with whose perspective we are trying to listen. That is what matters to us in the post modern society. So Ioni is a radical and feministic text here, focuses on autonomy and female identity. Why it is important to have a yoni? Yoni means several, Volga is coming to the bio note of Volga. She wrote very important works as Yashodhara, Svecha, and On the Banks of Pampa, Rajakiya Katalu. So these are all writings of Volga, how personal becomes political in the life of women, and she won prestigious Sahitya Academy Award in 2015 for contributions to the literature, and her work Vimukta. It is in Telugu and translated in English as The Liberation of Sita. Interestingly, The Liberation of Sita is a short stories of different characters of Ramayana, where we try to understand different women characters of Ramayana. For example, Sita is in the forest and she is trying to understand her own life, and in the forest she encounters Surpanaka. Generally what we think is Surpanaka, who is a sister of Ravana, is an enemy to Sita. No, they talk to each other and they identify there is something which is common to both of them. They are exploited. The violence happened in both the lives of Sita and Surpanaka. Then again they go and contact with Ahalya and other female characters in Ramayana, where they talk to each other in a comrade or in a friendly manner, that we can clearly see the perspective of women changes, how they became victims of the male perspective and how they were treated as or labeled themselves as good, bad or vulgar. So, these are some very important works of Volga, and today we are discussing one of the work of Volga, Ioni. I think Ioni literally means not born from a womb. There is not having a yoni. So, symbolizes independence from biological and social constraints and rejects the traditional definition of womanhood. So, when you do not have yoni, that is, you are rejecting the traditional definition of womanhood. Again, how self creation and autonomy, what kind of creation Volga wanted to explore us and engage us, we can see challenging the patriarchal lineage and identity. When the birth happens, it is from the female body, but the identity is given from a patriarchal note. So, the very notion of birth and identity is challenged in Ioni. I think Dr. Bhuvana will have lot of things to say about Ioni.
Yes. So, as ma'am rightly pointed out, Ioni means not being born from womb. So, in this novel, we find a little girl who has been sexually abused. Usually, childhood is a phase of joy and innocence. That is how it has been represented generally by the other authors. But Volga represents in a very radical manner. This Ioni novel itself is radical. So we find that this little girl experiences a very joyful childhood. It is filled with innocence. But later, after the abduction happens, her sense of childhood changes. Her sense of innocence is gone. We see that how the society has ripped off the innocence from her by encountering this kind of sexual abuse. So she starts disassociating with her body. She feels that if she has not possessed this yoni, this kind of exploitation might have not happened with her. This is what she feels through the entire novel, and we understand how the society failed to protect the innocence of this child. So this is how Ioni explores and how Volga tries to portray it in a very radical manner. It is quite different from Anitha Desai's Sita. She presented Sita in a very, of course she was rebellious, but not as rebellious as this girl in Ioni. So that is the difference we find between both the writers, and also this is the similarity, you can say, the way they represent the women in their works.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Bhuvana. When it comes to Ioni, it is a whole, missing of the whole. How you are going to see the body of a girl, small child, which is not just a representation of an organ, but it is representing something of the birth and sometimes a receiver of violence. Just because of that whole, Ioni, if the whole is not there, the women body is not controlled by the patriarchy or the society. So the text itself is a revolution. The text itself is rebellious in nature by questioning the authority of the society, of the patriarchy, of the condition on a woman's body, and how the resistance is showed is by it's a very important question. It is not something which we think of it in a very normal way. If the whole is not there, then the body of women is not considered as something which is subject of molestation. So it is not about, in the yoni, the dignity of the family, dignity of the man and dignity of the whole society lives there. So that is the basic question that the feministic ideology questions the pattern of the society. The text challenges the idea that women must be defined by birth or biology. If a girl has yoni, there could be no chance of violence perpetuated towards her. So this is some idea or not a fantasy idea, but a thought to thought for our for our life, that how this kind of people representation and representation of the class, gender and the class is clearly visible in all the three works of this great Indian English women writers.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, can we understand that the text Ione still has some relevance in our society? Can you please comment on that?
Yes, because it is something which is representing the asserting the autonomy and redefining the identity here. How, as a mirror, Ione acts as a mirror to the society to depict structural and gendered violence towards women and the impact it has on her psyche. Because when we look back after our 75 plus years of independence, violence has changed its form, but the violence is existing like old wine in the new bottle. So before independence we see about, we know about sati, then after the independence and at the time of independence it was about domestic violence, then it has changed into dowry system, then nowadays we can see lot of, there also violence was there, constantly women are associated with atrocities, with molestation, whether it is not about the age or the color or the people belonging to particular geographical conditions, but the crime happens in different forms, whether it can be in the contemporary world, the cyber crime or the media crime or the crime happening in the name of acid attacks. The crime has changed its form, but not in the same way it is repeated. So it is very much apt and very contemporary because of many reasons that we encounter. Every day in the newspaper we see 5 years child is molested, or it can be 60 years old women got abused in the public places, or for that matter women is never considered serious in the textual or literary circles unless and until the engagement should be serious when it comes to the contemporary society.
Wow, it definitely has a strong message for the society. On this note, Dr. Bhuvaneswari, can you please comment on how imagery is used by Volga to drive the message home?
Yes, sure, Shravya. And yes, we find, as I said, that this novel, Ione, is a radical one. And Volga uses imagery in a very powerful manner. It is not just in the normal way. She uses it as a weapon to represent the sexual exploitation that happened. For example, if we consider the imagery of the snakes, we see that it is usually in history it is associated with death. Here also we find the snakes attacking or that girl, but here the girl reacts in a different manner. She is not running away from death. She embraces death. Because of the sexual exploitation that happened with her, she is looking for death now. So here snakes are almost her friends, if we can say. And if we move to the next imagery, that is of the yoni. Here yoni is not just the whole, it is the identity of women, how the society looks at women only through their bodies, only through their sexual organs, and the penis is being represented as a knife or a gun that is attacking the women or the little girl in the story. So this is how the imagery brings a sense of power, a sense of exploitation that we see in the works of Volga.
Yeah, what Dr. Bhuvana was trying to tell is there is a powerful representation of the ideology, whether it can be from the spaces of Bengal writers Mahaswetha Devi, or it can be with Anitha Desai. They are redefining when it comes to Olga. She is trying to see from a perspective where every character is again and again trying to have her own perspective, its own perspective. The story is represented not from one level, but it is something which is peeled like layers of an onion. So layer by layer you can see how important it is for us to understand the text not only at peripheral level, but with an in-depth understanding of the particular characters. And the characters are not just the words, or just not the names, but the ideology that they carry. For example, the Hazar Chaurasi Kima in 1084. And just last, I request the students or the listeners, if you are having any observations, kindly call back to our numbers, that is 040-23680-456, so that you can have a conversation with all of us relating to Mahaswetha Devi, Anitha Desai and Volga. Dear students, now we are going to sum up what happened in this 1 hour journey of the discussion along with Bhuvana madam and Shravya here, because this is something related to the Indian writers in English and focusing from 3 perspectives, 3 writers after the post-independent India. The first is Mahaswetha Devi. Again, it is very important because the history is documented in the works of Mahaswetha Devi, whether it can be Hazar Chaurasi Kima or Rudali or other works of Mahaswetha Devi.
Good afternoon.
Madam, previously I called again, I'm asking question again, sorry for the calling again. The thing is, madam, is it not a metaphysical conceit, madam, like you are loving your husband and those things about the Volgas? Why it's like always, if there is any deviation in women's behavior, we can be punished, right? So it's not like I'm not doing this, but I'm just asking the question. Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is Sai. The very word Sai used is something which we should think, right? He said, can't we punish a wife?
See the words, see that's what relevance. Can't we punish a wife? And can't this be deviation? The words he has used here, the question.
So it is for all the viewers and the audience. Why the question of deviation? So the very notion of marriage is questioned here. And when the wife is doing some wrong, that's what the Sai was trying to tell. So the what is right and wrong in the notion of marriage, that is what these 3 writers are trying to tell. Thank you, Sai. You are representing the society, conditional society, stereotypical society, which is very, very contemporary happening, and that's what we wanted to address in a more egalitarian way. Sai and other dear friends who gave a call to us, we wanted you to reread not only the text but also the experiences of the life. That's what Mahaswetha Devi's Hazar Chaurasi Kima or Anitha Desai's Where Shall We Go This Summer or Volga's the Ioni and the liberation of Sita is all struggling to tell or making us to understand the concept of ideology of personal is political. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity, because all the 3 of us trying to give a picture of how Indian women writers made an impact in the Indian English literature. Thank you so much.